This is That Night Out.
Run it up.
Sir,
Yes.
first Dad's Night Out.
Dad's
A
night
little
out,
bit
dude.
of Four Roses small batch. Compliments of Joel Burns.
Oh, nice. All right, what's on the docket?
Wrestling.
Wrestling.
What were your first thoughts walking into Bierstadt?
The energy, dude. Like, as soon as I walked in the door, I was, like, unsure of the amount of people that would be there and, like, what the setup was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been there twice. And as soon as we walked in the door, you heard the ruckus, but you also just felt energy in the building, and I was not ready for that.
Yeah, me neither.
And so, to the viewers, you can't see when you walk in what's happening.
It's just
So
like the bar.
there's a corridor of doors you have to go through before you get to it. So you can hear it, you can feel it, and then as you come around the corner, you see the ring, and you see like 300 to 400 people, which I was not expecting.
Because you walk in and you see like 50 people.
Yep.
And then you walk through the shipping containers.
Yep.
And then you get around the side, and then there's like stadium seating or floor seating set up, and then stadium seating in the back, all standing room on the side. So there was like a good 500 people there.
Yep. And the people on the catwalk
Up on the catwalk. Dude, it was nuts.
Yeah.
It was a wild night.
It was incredible. I listened to I listened to hardcore podcast and a lot of hardcore and wrestling crossover. So there's quite a few actual big time hardcore dudes have become wrestlers. I'm not into wrestling, but just hearing about them talk about it, it's very similar, like the touring, the demands on your body, etc. And then I have a few friends that are into local indie wrestling. So it's just been kind of my mind for like the last year, and I was like not sure like when I'd do this, and then when the opportunity to have like a dad's night out, something that would be eccentric and something that'd be memorable, I was like, let's find it. And it happened to be like the week we wanted to do something. So,
Dude, so sick. And I wrote a blog post about this the other day, but when we were like talking about this project and we're like, let's go shoot some stuff. And you're like, oh, and you gave me this list. And one of the first ones on there was like pro wrestling. I remember just being like, nah, dude, I'm not going to pro wrestling. I don't do that. That's not my thing.
the goal of this year is to get Sean to do things he's uncomfortable with.
I'm not uncomfortable with it. I just like pass. Like, let's go.
That's it, dude, because you're uncomfortable with the idea of telling your friends you went to wrestling.
Dude, whatever. I'm down to do whatever except midget wrestling. That was the first thing that you wanted to do, and that was a hard no for me. That was not the first.
That presented
one.
itself. I wasn't looking for it.
That's not the first one. Yeah, dude. So when you proposed this, I was like, oh, this is weird. And then it was, I don't even know what night it was. Maybe it was Christmas or whatever. But I was like, you know what? Like, screw this. I don't want to, like you said, I want to do some stuff that maybe I wouldn't choose to do.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of adventure is. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
And then when we got there, dude, I was like excited driving there. And then when we walked in the doors and you just heard pandemonium,
That's exactly the way.
I was like, oh, this is real. Like, this really happens. Like, this is a thing.
Dude, the sounds of the ring was the other thing too that like really caught me off guard. Like as you walked in, like you heard the ruckus and everything, but like the sounds of the ring is like such a like it burns into your memory.
Yeah.
Just the sound of the mat, the ring, the turnbuckle, everything is like it's so visceral that like something you would never understand or experience watching it on TV.
And boy, people were into it. They were freaking into it. So this whole time, like, I mean, you know, watching TNA wrestling or WWF, as we know it. Shout out to the 90s babies. Like it's fun watching it on TV, but then you go and see it live, and people are getting slammed into the ground.
Oh, dude!
And people from the crowd are like cheering, and they know the names of the wrestlers, and they're losing their mind, bro. It was
incredible.
It was so fun.
It was incredible.
It was so freaking fun.
I'm hooked. Like, put it in my veins right now, dude. Like, I'll be there.
Yeah. Are you gonna be a wrestler? Are you gonna be?
No, I'm not. I just. It's interesting. Like, as someone who is obsessed with subcultures, like this is a whole new subculture to like sink my teeth into and to like document and wrap my head around what it is about wrestling that people love. Something I never understood, and going to it, I get it.
What about it?
Just like the experience with the wrestlers themselves, the people that make up the wrestling community, right? The professionals who do this for a living, put their body on the line, put on a show, right? It's entertainment at the end of the day. It's real. It's very real. We realize like that from the beginning. It's real. The physical violence, the energy that they put into it, but also it's just like it's a show. And when you can get drawn into it by being there, it's like it presents itself as a real, like, it's theatrical, but it is like it sucks you in.
It sucks you in.
Yeah, the energy, the sound, the noise, the people. It's like, wow, it's a production.
Yeah.
But it's not a production. You just sit there and go, oh, well, this is wonderful, and like clap. It's like you're in it.
Yeah.
It's a visceral experience.
What about subcultures gets you going? Because you are really into a lot of that world.
I don't know, man. Like as a kid growing up, my dad exposed us to it early. Like punk rock was something like, I don't know, kindergarten, first grade. Like punk rock made it into my life. Rage Against the Machine, like these subculture, pushing against the norms, pushing against cultural normality. It's just been something that I've grown up with. Like as a kid, I love graffiti, I love punk rock, I love like action sports, and it's just continued to permeate into my life. And it's where I thrive. It's where I feel comfortable in those fringe places.
What do you mean by comfortable?
I find comfort. I'm more comfortable in a setting where people would be uncomfortable. Like going to those warehouse shows with 100 people, like I'm more happy and more content, and I feel more at home in those places.
At home.
Yeah.
What about those atmosphere? Like what do you gain from those atmospheres?
It's something about the people, the community of people that are pushing against normality, like societal norms, what's expected, right? Like the way that people dress, the way that people act. Like at a wrestling show, like you can just do whatever. You can yell, twist his dick, and like nobody bats an eye, right? You can't do that at the mall or at church or at your local play. Like you can't screw that. It's just those things that like aren't accepted in normality, like normal society and normal everyday activities like that. Yeah. I enjoy that. I love being around people who are like, I don't care.
It's like a release valve.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Do you think
we're gonna get Sean to go to our hardcore show this year? He's gonna stage dive.
I'm gonna stage dive and you'll take pictures of it. Do you need like that release valve to feel alive?
Absolutely.
Why?
There's an energy. There's a feeling of this community accepts everyone. Right? Like anybody who walked into that wrestling show, no one was being judged for being there.
Everybody was there.
There was all walks of life, all kinds of people, every skin tone.
Dude, every race. There was like, I remember, so in the front row, when you're looking at the stage, the front row of the seats, there was you got a picture of her. There was like the mayor of Wrestletown. She was screaming in a bullhorn. It was super sick.
Yep.
2 seats over from her was a first date with some done up like blonde and some dude in a sport coat, like they just came from dinner situation. And then 2 seats down from them was some homie with a white beanie and like t-shirts, tats all over the place. And then all throughout the crowd, man, it was everybody, like everybody, every person that could exist was at wrestling. That's the first thing that I noticed. I was like, dude, like I had no idea.
That stuff that's where I thrive. I find that energy. I love that people can come in together around a certain item and there's no judgment. There's nothing. And definitely like the punk hardcore space, like you walk in there and it's all walks of life.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment as soon as you walk in the door. And that's what was cool about wrestling. Yeah. I saw that. I saw the energy. I saw the people just like releasing like whatever they felt. They were like, no one was monitoring it or questioning what was being said or how people acted.
And I mean, you've mentioned that before where wrestling and hardcore, they're part and parcel.
Yep.
Like they're the same crowd. So did you feel as excited at this show as you do at hardcore shows?
In different ways for
Okay.
sure. The energy of live music kind of radiated the same way, like that feeling of like the MCs that were there were incredible. Like right, they were hyping up the crowd and like interacting and playing. I definitely feel like something about live music for me draws me in, like emotionally as well, connecting. But yeah, I think there was a very similar vibe to that where it's like what was going on. You were casting your eyes on the ring, same thing. It was as a stage, and it pulled you in. What was going on at that stage? What was going on in that ring just pulled you in. You were like, I could see it in Sean's face. So viewers at home, Sean is this all the time.
What are you talking about, boy?
He gets excited, but he's even keeled. Unless it's about hockey, then he's through the roof. And I looked over a few times at his camera, and he was just staring at it and like wide-eyed and the biggest grin I've ever seen. And that energy, like you could tell, it was radiating through everyone, including Sean. And it was awesome.
It's true. So you're right. I had so much freaking fun, and I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was
Dude,
going to
neither
happen.
one of us when we walked in there knew it could have happened.
You couldn't know unless you've been to it before. But even then, man, when I was sitting there, like I remember being in the front row. I remember walking because I was like, I'm gonna go try to snack some stuff over there because we could get like right up to the ring, and nobody was asking questions. Nobody said stop. Nobody like we could have got in the ring if we wanted to. It was just so wild. And so when I walked up there, I got behind these two cats, and they were losing their mind for this, man. And like they knew they knew the story. They knew the history. They've been to these matches before. They've watched them online. They're calling dudes like words I can't say out loud, just losing their minds. And I took a step back, and I like stood up, and I looked across the entire audience that was there. And I was like, oh, dude, nobody's having a crappy time.
No,
right now. Nobody's thinking about work. Nobody's thinking about the things they don't have. Nobody's thinking about bills. Nobody's thinking about whatever. Dude, they're just tuned all the way into this show. And I was like, this is fun. Like, this is what fun feels like.
Absolutely.
It's unadulterated joy.
Yeah.
It was, and you know, it's just dudes in tights that shouldn't be in tights, throwing each other around a ring, slamming each other, like making funny faces. There's
not a lot of spaces where people are fully connected and fully blissfully unaware of what's going on around them.
Yeah,
like they're just fully focused and connected. Like you go to some major sporting events now, it's like everyone's like, "What's the Wi-Fi like? How's the food here?" It's like, you know, like what are the amenities around you? It's like this was people just sitting on wooden benches. Screaming into the atmosphere. It was awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna go back this week, but I'll definitely go to another show. And we met one of the wrestlers. I took a portrait of the guy, and
which was phenomenal.
Thank you.
He posted them on Instagram.
He did?
Yeah.
Sweet. I don't have Instagram, so I would never know.
I managed to find most of the wrestlers. It was very difficult.
That's awesome. Yeah, they don't really have a good social situation going on.
Yeah, if you guys see this, you guys need to work on that.
Yeah. Rocky Mountain Wrestling something.
Rocky Mountain Professional Wrestling.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
If you need to know what this is, ask Larry. Yeah, so we met that dude, and he was telling us all about, you know, the tour that they're doing and the circuit that they have in town, and it just seems like so much fun. It seems just free.
Yeah.
That's the word that kept coming to me that night. It's like, this feels free.
Absolutely.
I feel free. First of all, I feel free to be rowdy and just not care. But second of all, what really opened up for me is I've had a love-hate relationship with my camera for the last couple of years. So I've been in production for a really long time. I got burnt out on it. I didn't want to do anything with it. And watching you kind of blossom into this photographer of the last couple of years has been really, really fun. I haven't had that same fire for a really long time. And then walking into the night and seeing all these people freaking out and just having this explosion of oh, maybe I can go shoot over here. Maybe I can get a high shot over here. Maybe I can shoot between these guys. Like my mind was racing, and it unlocked this passion for photography and this excitement for the lens that I haven't felt in so long.
Which I love, dude. I think that
Yeah.
I see it a lot. Like so I'm becoming a creative, but I'm not in the creative space. But I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I'm checking Instagram. I'm seeing how creatives interact with their cameras, with their work, and it's like it's an epidemic of people who are like burnt out from the creative experience and pursuing it as a profession. And like having like I was just reading an article today about wonderful guy I love. He's a cyclist. He's a brand photographer. He's an architect. He used to be an architect, etc. But he's been doing it for 20 years, and he has his work camera and he has his Leica M10. And he's like, this camera doesn't do paid shoots. He's like, I've made more money with this from taking photos of people cycling, but it's like he has two separate entities.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's like, but reading enough about it and hearing enough people's experience, I can understand how that would happen.
Well, it's art versus commerce. I mean, it's the conversation that I, bore people with all the time. It's just it's water and oil. They're never going to mix. And if there's somebody that can figure out how to do that, I question if it's truly art. And that just might be me, but it gets to a point where it's like there needs to be a passion behind the creating. And a lot of the times the commerce just chokes the passion out immediately.
Yeah.
And that's really what I experienced. And when you come up trying to learn technique and trying to learn how to create beauty in a way that is like refined, and you're caught in a market that is just there's so much that comes out and it's not refined. It's just quick and dirty, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, when all it is just Instagram reel after Instagram reel after Instagram reel after Facebook post after this after that after this, and it's like, man, like it just bludgeons you.
Yeah.
It sucks this creative energy out of you, because I caught myself trying to become the next popular whatever, DP, director, photographer, whatever. I was so focused on that, and being focused on something that doesn't really matter takes the steam out. And so watching you pick up the camera, learn how to shoot, kind of refine your style, create this style and refine it over the last few years, that's been a little bit of the catalyst to me being like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to this creative game. Maybe there's something that like I'm completely missing. And wrestling was the key to unlocking what that thing was. So
dude,
it was cool.
And that's what I've been saying is like, so we're talking about these subcultures, these spaces.
Yeah.
Those places allow you in with no barrier of entry. There's literally no barrier sometimes at hardcore shows, at action sports, whatever. Like, and that's the one thing that, for me coming into the space as a photographer, I don't know the rules. I don't know what this is supposed to be or what it's supposed to look like. And walking into those spaces with a camera, like you're just allowed free reign. And I saw it for you, right? Like the first time, like you didn't have expectations walking in, and then there was no barriers for you. You were able to shoot however you wanted to, wherever you wanted to, whereas a professional sporting event or a wedding or name it, there's expectations, there's rules. And when you walked into wrestling, there's no rules.
Yeah.
And you were allowed to just be like, all right, how do I want to capture this?
Yeah.
How do I want to look at through my lens, and what vision can I create? What story can I tell? And no one was there to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cool experience. That's an incredible experience. When I go to hardcore shows, I can take a picture of someone this close when they're performing, and no one's stopping you.
Yep.
No one's saying, hey, you can't be here. Hey, where's your credentials?
Yeah.
I'm learning. I'm just like, hey, I'm here. This is the first time shooting a show, and I'm 3 inches away from a guy's face. It's a crazy experience. And so it was cool to watch you experience that. You're like, no one's going to stop me from going here.
Yeah.
No one's telling me no.
Yeah.
And it opened I could see the way you were just looking at everything, like how this is my canvas now, and no one's going to stop me from creating, painting where I want. There's no lines. And it was cool to watch.
Bang on, dude. Yeah, bang on. Which is a great segue into your style of photography, and just explain it. Explain your passion, your style behind the photos that you take.
So we kind of had a quick conversation about this with the subculture stuff. Me and Sean have had a lot of conversations and discussions about this. But so, I mean, I guess like looking at hearing people's origin stories, understanding that again, I'm not an artist. So I'm always like, I'm trying to understand getting the mindset of an artist. And I guess like seeing how people describe like where their vision comes from, a lot of it is like being an Asian American who didn't fit in. So I've always like been on the outside watching people and being in spaces where I don't fit like the square, right? Like having an Asian Filipino mother and a white father in the Filipino communities I was not accepted fully, and in the white American communities I wasn't accepted either. So I was always watching and seeing people flourish and trying to find where I fit in. And I think that kind of like goes into my counterculture stuff, but it allows me to always kind of take the back seat and just document everything before I had a camera. And so that's something that's how I look at life. I look at everything on a flat plane in front of me and just like absorb it in. But yeah, that's just how I live and operate. And I like that space. Like give me a little bit of space for myself to absorb and observe. And so that's how I like to document life. I like to document people where they're at in that moment. And when I look through the lens, it's allowed me that space where like I can just see exactly what's happening in that moment. And having kids, raising kids, being in this family has allowed me to even explore that even more. Because when you're documenting kids, they don't notice the camera. They don't care what is happening around them. They're just in that moment, in that space. Like they don't see anything. So you can bring the camera right up to them and nothing changes about them. They're not worried about which side of their face looks good or what they ate that day or what's on their face. Like it's awesome. And that's really allowed me to blossom and absorb what it is to document and to photograph.
You remind me, so a lot of like your work now, so when you started, there was a lot that you were doing. There was moments where I was like, oh, that's great. That feels cool. But now it feels like you're finding your voice, and now it feels like you're finding your style. And it reminds me of, I was thinking about this today, but it reminds me of, you keep saying documenting. You're a documentary photographer, but what comes to mind is a lot of like protest photos. Like people who are in the crowd who are just like snapping shots and just getting in the mix, and they're not worried about composition necessarily in the rules of composition. They're just trying to get that one shot, that one moment, that one thing that feels real. Get in and get out. And fly on the wall. Is that like does that feel true?
Absolutely, dude. It's crazy because I was at the library yesterday looking at it was a 60-year history of Asian American culture in America, including like the protests behind racial stereotypes, etc., like in Hollywood, fighting against landlords, and it was incredible. Like, but that's exactly it. I want to just like, if I can get one photo that tells the whole story, those are incredible. Like, I love those documentary photos, those protest photos, everything about looking at a photo and knowing everything that happened in that moment is so powerful.
So what are you thinking about when you're trying to take your photo?
I want to capture emotion and the story in real time.
Okay.
Like, so that's something I want to work on this year, is like trying to direct people more and do studio work, et cetera, portraiture. But like, I love street portraits because I love going up to someone and say, I love what you're wearing right now. Let me capture it. Let me document this day, this moment, however you're feeling, whether you're sad, you're happy, you broke up with somebody, you just got a job offer, whatever it is. Like, I want to meet you in the street, say hello, tell you I love your outfit, tell you look beautiful, you're radiating, whatever, and just capture it. Because it's powerful. It's powerful to look through the lens and see somebody like absorb everything they're feeling in that moment and then capture it and then tell them thank you and move on. Or take a couple minutes and hear their story. It's the most powerful thing that I've felt in a long time.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love street photography. That's kind of one of the things that, if I could do for the rest of my life is street photography. And we've gone out and shot street a little bit. And I think what was cool about this night was I got to employ a lot of that street mentality. but also build a composition and try to have the action. So I like to build the composition and then try to capture the action in that frame, which is different from how I see your pictures coming out, is that you like to find the action and then clack one off, and the composition kind of finds itself in the back end. So your pure passion and your pure energy, and then where I'm a little bit more fine art, and we'll see if we get it right.
That's incredible. Yeah, I've been trying to put that into words for a long time. It's like,
Well, there you go.
yeah. I'm trying to find the energy and the emotion immediately.
Yeah.
That's what I'm drawn to.
Yeah, it's sick.
What are you feeling after looking at all your photos? So the energy you shown in the last few days has been awesome.
Yeah.
As somebody who's watched you wrestle with those emotions, and
Pun intended,
that's
eh?
right. Yeah. Off the top rope. But yeah, just like wrestling with the last few years of seeing you shifting your focus, your energies towards creative passions. Like, how do you feel? How does it feel to look through these photos? Like, what are you seeing when you look at them?
I was on a playground. I was doing stuff. It really felt like street photography to me, and that's been the most free that I've ever felt shooting. No one's telling you what to do. You're just experiencing life in the moment, and that's how I felt shooting this. It really felt like street photography, which was wild to me because we're anything but. There was a lot of things that I was just experimenting with, and I haven't experimented with anything for the past few years. I mean, here and there, like I'll pick up the camera and you know, oh, I wonder if this will look, and like do something stupid, but not in any sort of like, I'm going to dive headfirst into this and see what comes out.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of like shutter dragging. I was doing what I like about, so I'm shooting with the X100T, right?
Yep.
I don't know what camera I have.
It's not about the gear.
It's not about the gear, but it is a Fuji X100T. And so it's a crop sensor, 23 mil, basically comes out at 35 on a full sensor. And what I've been trying to practice is if you get a nice foreground element kind of around the perimeter of the frame, it creates, there's a lot of distortion that I find on wider lenses typically, but on this, what I like is that there's just enough distortion that if you get a cool foreground element just along the perimeter, it distorts, elongates a little bit, and kind of creates this vortex into the middle of the shot. It pulls you in. So if you can find leading lines that create some sort of parallax effect moving in, like I just elongates the thing and makes me feel immersed into the photo. And so there was a few moments that night where I was like, oh, okay, how can I find that? How can I find that angle? How can I find that composition? And then being on the outside of the ring, the pads on the corners, like that was identifiable enough with, you know, context of the picture. But if you put it just at the edge of the photo, it created this pulling effect for me with the leading lines of the actual ropes into the guys throwing themselves at each other in the ring. And I was like, that's freaking cool. That's really cool. And so I was trying to find something there. And the other thing was like, you know, you move the camera up an inch, you move it down an inch, your perspective changes completely. And maybe you get a guy's face.
Yep.
Right. But then you take away from like the other guy's face that he has in headlock or whatever. So there was all of this. It's just shooting from the hip and trying to create something as fast as possible while thinking of the techniques that I have in my mind trying to compose at the same time. So it's cool. It's reactionary. It's puzzle making. It's creative at, you know, light speed.
It's crazy because you can't control any of it.
You can't control any of it. And if you're able to...
How does that make you feel, though? As like a person who's creative and has worked in more directive type roles, how did it feel to like not have any control over what was happening and just having to like work through that?
Well, a lot of my background is in documentary. So B-roll, like you don't necessarily... depending on what you're doing, like you can direct B-roll, but a lot of the stuff that I like to do is undirected B-roll wise. I love shooting interviews and then going out and capturing the people doing their thing. Now we set them in activities, you know,
Yep.
why don't you go over here and do this thing, and we'll, you know,
So you have some kind of framework.
yeah,
for
there's
them,
a framework.
But you're still,
you put them in the playground, you give them a bunch of toys, and you're like, play with these, and you kind of know what your shots are. For this, I couldn't control anything. I wasn't hired. I didn't have the, you know, press pass to get you in and get you out and get you backstage, so that you could, you know, we didn't have any scouts at the beginning, so I didn't know what we were walking into. You know, nobody asked questions, so we probably could have done any of that. But I think what it felt again was just free. Like it felt free. It felt immersive to a point where I could let all of that go, and take photos, be a photographer, be a creative, and that was really cool. That's what it made me feel, free.
hell yeah.
Yeah, which is something that, you know, I feel like if you don't feel that as you're trying to make stuff, what you're making just comes out as forced slop, you know. You just kind of mail stuff in at that point. And I've been in too many positions over the last few years where I feel like a lot of it is just mailed in because we have to appease the client, and we have to make something that, you know, is going to pay the bills, and we have to keep the clients happy, and we have to get the next client. We have to put stuff on the portfolio, and it's like, guys, like, none of this matters. Like, it's not going to matter in 5 years. Like, I don't know if this wrestling photography is going to matter in 5 years, but you know, our memories are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it brought us closer together. And you know, maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the bottom of all of this, is that we just become closer as brothers, and we do fun stuff at the end of it. And maybe that's it. And maybe that's great. But I also think that there's a little bit of magic in not having some sort of creative brief that you have to shoot to.
It's funny that you bring that up with like the what was this about, right? We kind of discussed it at the beginning of what are we going to do with this? Like how do we create something out of this? And as dads, right? There's a formula to being a dad in a way, right? Like it's about hitting your marks with your kids, showing up for them, making the right sandwich at the right time with the right amount of crust cut off. It's like doing the dishes, doing the laundry. It's making sure that your kids are fed and bathed and then down at the right times. And there's something about walking into a situation where there's no formula. You don't know what's about to happen. And being able to like react to that and then create something out of it. And so when Sean asked me to put a list together, I put a list together of stuff that we didn't have any control over. Yeah. It wasn't like, let's go to a game at 7:30. We sit in these seats. We watch this game for this many hours, and we drive this certain route home. The stuff that I picked out was things that like we can go and experience and explore and adventure and find our way into situations that we maybe not comfortable with, or maybe just don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And I think you asked me that earlier, like what is about subcultures, et cetera. It's like that. I don't know what I'm going to get into. And my wife, Lindsay, has become more comfortable with that because I've pushed her into it a lot, but she's just not that kind of person. And I thrive in that. Walking into something, I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be like. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what I'm going to smell like afterwards. Like whatever. It's like, I just walk into it and I'm like, I'm going to experience this. I'm going to be there in the present with no reservations or expectations. And then those for me are the memories that stand out the farthest. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Sounds like a Thursday night for me, but yeah, totally. I love that. So as dads, I think we need that as dads to land that plane, is to walk into situations and be uncomfortable and experience things that we're not normally in because we have a formulaic, scheduled, regimented day 99% of the time. I think you're 100% right. I think children are so uncontrollable and so reactive that
I mean, all of this is a perfect metaphor for being a dad, for showing up to the adventure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. With no expectations and trying to curb those expectations, and be present. And that's, I don't want to get too far ahead because we have we're supposed to be following a script here.
Yeah. You didn't give me the script.
Yeah, I didn't send you that text. I want to talk about your photo of the night. So walk me through that.
Okay, so Sean found a great place to shoot from. I wasn't comfortable going over there, but Sean found the location. I was standing again. I'm comfortable standing back and trying to find my action and motion from farther away or off to the side or whatever. And Sean gets right in.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You got to shoot from here."
Yeah.
So I did. Yeah. And it happened to be during the main match, which was incredible. Like the action. So the other credible thing about this was, I likened it to hardcore as well. You have the openers, and as the openers come up one after another, the energy moves. The sound gets louder. The sound guy starts cranking things from 4 to 7. And then by the time the headliner comes on, they're at 11. Everyone's excited. The energy's cranked all the way. The sound's cranked all the way. And that was the same way the main match went. It just chaos. Like, all hell broke loose. They got into the crowd. They're throwing benches at each other. And it was incredible to see that crescendo. Like, as the night wore on, you could feel the energy. Like, okay, things are about to pop off. And they did.
Story time. So
yeah.
So you're right. Like when I get into places, like if I'm given free reign, like don't give me free reign because I'm gonna go wherever I want to go and get the shot. I mean, one of the camera ladies I'm like leaning over the ring with my camera like in the ring, and she comes around and I like pull it back and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit." I'm like, "What do you? You're getting paid for this. Like I'm just in your way." But so you went in that corner on the front row, right by where the guardrails were. I came around, and the main match, these guys were like beating each other up. They went off the side, and I was like, "Larry, go over there," and like without kicking you in the ass, like I kicked you in the ass to go over closer to the action.
Yeah.
Turns out that these crazy guys start fighting and moving the guardrails out of the way. This poor lady who's like screaming through a bullhorn, she's like in a wheelchair, and so like beer glasses are falling all over the place. Like the couple that was on the date got super uncomfortable and they left like the minute they walked by. And so they're coming out in the crowd, they move these things and they like start to make their way to the back of the room where, crates and all these things were. And Larry just takes off with them. And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah." So anyways, that was really fun to see. Continue talking about your photo. You love being there.
Yeah, that energy that I felt in that moment, I didn't think about it. I was like, all right, just go with it. You have to go to you have to go to the action and be there because no one's going to stop me. And I walked right up to them as they're hitting each other benches, and I was the only person standing next to him, except for the referee. But yeah, so I found Sean led me to this position to shoot from, and as the match wore on, I kind of experimented a little bit, but again, like I just looked at my lens and I'm like trying to capture the moment as it is. And yeah, as I saw him mount him, I don't know, I just was like, this is it. Like this is a pinnacle moment of a match where like the tide was turning. And the energy was there. Like you could see the people in the background that I captured. Yeah. They were like fully immersed in it. And the two wrestlers were fully immersed in the moment of that match. And yeah, I liked what I saw through I shot through the guardrails, try to get some of the ring, the black barrier, so it create that separation, but also kind of created a stage essentially, like with the way I composed it. Like there's a stage, they're on it, and then everything is framing that stage. And so I played around with composition a little bit, but I wanted to like get enough of the foreground of the actual ring so that it felt like you could feel like they were elevated. They are putting on a show for everybody.
And what I think captures that, like, feeling really well is just this little bit of foreground that you have in the right side of the frame.
Yeah, of the frame. Yeah, of the railing.
It feels like voyeuristic is probably not the right word, but it feels like you're peeking through something, watching this guy beat the hell out of this other dude, and it feels like an audience member. It feels like you're getting a perspective of somebody sitting there watching this happen.
I felt that voyeuristic feeling. I wanted that. So I moved my camera back and forth a few times to try to capture like more or less of the frame, like with the actual ring and then the hand railing around me, but also wanting to manage like capture those turnbuckles since I was close enough. So yeah, I played around with the composition a little bit, but again, it was more just like, I'll crop it if I need to. I just want to capture like the raw emotion of this.
There's so many dynamics happening in this photo to me. So we have the ropes encircling the entire thing. So you have these diagonal lines kind of moving through the entire image. You have this guy punching another guy in the face. So there's tons of energy there, but you also have all these specular highlights just dancing around the image. So there's just a vibrancy, there's an energy to the entire shot. And I think that's what makes it come alive for me, because if everything was just black and dim and gross, this dude punching another dude in the face, it still wouldn't have that like vibrance to me. It wouldn't have that energy, it wouldn't have that excitement. But the way that you were able to use more of this like hero angle, looking up, looking into these string lights, using these lines as leading lines into the action, it just comes alive. And I think you really nailed this photo.
Yeah, looking through, I shot like 300 or so photos, and I narrowed it down to 15, and then through those 15, I was like, this was the one where I was like, this could be a portfolio photo. Like that felt like there might have been 2 or 3 I was happy with, but this is the one I was like, I genuinely was like super proud of what I captured.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
It's sick.
It was sick. It was sick to shoot from that angle too, like, because you get so much of the crowd, the people around the ring, and then also like the atmosphere of the banners hanging down. Like it's a cool place.
Yeah, it's so much atmosphere. That's like the perfect word for it. So much atmosphere.
There's a lot going on, and like it doesn't detract from the image. It adds to it.
Which is hard because you get to a lot of location shoots where you don't have any control over art. You don't have any art direction. Sometimes you get stuck with like bum corners and like, you know, gross ceilings and bare walls. But this, it was basically like every single angle we took a photo from had some sort of texture behind it that made everything stand out.
There's no bad places to shoot in there.
Yeah, there was.
And whether it was like dark, like it created like, I took a couple of shots from the right side of the ring, and I was able to like cut the ring essentially and just have like darkness to the side, and it's every single like way you captured it was awesome.
Yeah, super sick. I favorited some other ones that I want to talk about too, because this was one of my favorite shots that you have of the night, and I love. So this is what I think you do really, really well. You capture moments that not a lot of people are thinking about. In this shot particularly, you have people who are tuned into the ring. This guy's doing the chop hand. The guys behind him are doing the chop hand. Like all this motion is directed to the left of frame. And then you have one dude right in the middle who's going the opposite direction. What is he thinking? I don't know. What is going on? I don't know. But there's some, like, you have a natural vignette going on as well, because you have this arabesque, starts up here, comes down, leads right into his face, and then flows through the rest of the photo. So this whole natural vignette is happening. He's center framed, which is really cool. All these highlights, they're it's like radiating lines out from the center. So there's a lot of cool compositional elements that are happening, but you weren't thinking of that. What you were thinking about was this guy walking or turning around. And I remember when you shot this photo, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then seeing it come out, I was like, oh, dude, that's freaking cool. Like, there's something about this that I love so much. There's so much happening in it. Everybody on the balcony that's looking at the ring, everybody over here that's doing the chop hands, and this dude's just taking off. Yeah,
there was something with that moment where, again, like just being observant observer and standing back. It was like everyone was so engrossed in this moment. Like the MCs did an incredible job of like engaging everyone, and I caught myself excited for a second, and then that part of my brain was like, how can you capture this? Because there's a palpable energy. People are looking stage. How can you turn the camera around and say, what's going on with these people that they're captivated by? And the thing that caught my eye was, the guy turned to walk out, and I was like, why would you walk out right now? When everyone's chopping, they're all engaged with the stage, and then something just catches my eye where dude turns to leave, and I was like, this seems like a good moment to capture. Because something drew him away from it. Maybe he wasn't about the chop life. I don't know, but it was just chop life. Yeah, there was something about like him leaving, and I was like, I gotta capture all this energy, and then he sparked it.
Hey man, if you ain't about the chop life, I don't know what to tell you. This one.
Yes.
I love this photo.
Okay, so kudos to Sean because I saw him turning the camera to shoot, and that was something that I was like, I'm very straight lines. Like I guess it's more like my study of like the Magnum photographers, and just like I don't have that creative side to me yet. When I look through the camera, I just capture it as smooth and as like rectangular like as possible. And I saw you shooting with like different angles, and I was like, let me try it. And I just happened to. It was a great moment where he was catching him up against the turnbuckle. There's
so much feeling in this photo. That's what I love about shoots like this, is that the way that I was picking my photos, I was like, whatever makes me feel something, that's what I'm gonna grab.
Dude, that's something you told me from the first 6 months of trying this photography thing. I'd bring photos to you, and you're like, yeah, but what story does this tell? What's going on here? Tell me what happened. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just thought it was a cool composition, or it looked like a cool scene. So as I've grown as a photographer, I've always looked at things now through that storytelling mode, and I didn't know that existed. So my composition now is capturing the moment, but also like if it's not telling a story or evoking emotion, what is that photo doing? And which is crazy because Sean got me a William Eggleston book, photo book. He's a Magnum photographer that captures the ordinary, and you look through some of the photos and you're like, there's nothing here. But when you look into it for another 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, you start to see this darkness come through his photos of a tricycle in a parking lot. And most people are like, that's a garbage photo.
Yeah.
And then you look at it and you look at it and you see the little things and you're like, there's something sad here. There's something that was broken here. So yeah, it's incredible that you brought that up.
The only thing broken in this photo is this guy's face. I love this, man. I love this. There's so much happening. And I'm going to use the word again, dynamic. The diagonal lines that you have going on. So you're always looking for what's the word? A dominant, either vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, right? Typically, horizontals and verticals evoke more of like a calm, centered, easygoing feel, right? Diagonals always offer, not always, maybe always offer this sense of energy, suspense, you know what I mean? And in this photo, dude, is just like the most sinister feeling of the night for me. This guy just getting ramrodded into the turnbuckle, his hair flipping out, his face in agony, these leading lines just like piercing him. It's like knives going into his side. You have all these like highlights behind him. It looks like camera flashes going off, so it feels like the big moment of the stage. Like you see all these people just staring into it. It's so freaking cool. And you shot Dutch. So that's what that's called, Dutch angle, which adds just a little bit of goofiness to it, right? It feels off balance. It feels out of place. It feels off kilt. And so that Dutch mixed with these diagonals, mixed with this moment, it just brings so much energy to this photo, and I freaking love it. Like I could stare at this all day long. Like I feel like I'm there. Like I feel like I'm watching like this guy just getting hayukened. You know what I mean? Like this is the end of his life right here. And it's so cool. I think you capture that really well. And then
Thank
you
you.
said you're talking about story. And this one, I think, is probably the best storytelling photo that you got of the night, even though it's not correct because no one used the chair. But this is
Yeah.
really cool because there's a few things happening for me. The first thing is there's a cool balance to the photo. You have this object here in the foreground, and then you have these guys here. They're about the same size, so you have this symmetry happening. But then you have this storytelling element of a chair. It feels like a chair match. They never used it. I don't know if they used it. Did they?
I don't know that they. There might have been some point, but it wasn't prominent like I thought they would.
I was probably chimping at that point, looking at the photos. So you have this storytelling element that is creating this leading line right into the actual story happening right in front of you. And I love that you did a 1x1 on it because it's super contained to me. It just feels like I ripped this out of a page of a book. So I know exactly what's happening in the night with this one photo right here. We're at a wrestling match. Some shit went down. A chair was involved. This referee is trying to make sure that this guy isn't dead or he's getting pinned. Like there's something really cool about this photo for me.
It really drew me in the chair. I was like, how do I capture? So there's a Instagram account I follow called Sport Arts, and they do fine art photography in sports. It's incredible,
Cool.
like absolutely beautiful. And a lot of the stuff they do is like sometimes negative space, right? So it's like capturing one player on a field of 100 people, right? But just them in the negative space. And yeah, like I saw this chair and I was like, I just was drawn to like capturing that both with the composition I could only gather with my 35 and us being at ring level. It was like, how do I grab a lot of the chair and then also show what's happening in the event? And it was incredible that they just happened to like get on the ground, start wrestling right there. So it lent itself to it. But I really wanted like the chair was such a cool atmospheric piece of this match, and I was like, how can I grab a picture of that? Because everything around that had up to that point had been about the two guys wrestling, and I was like, that's like yeah, I wanted to grab a picture of that so that it like captured that memory of like what happened in the match.
Yeah, you nailed it, dude.
Thank you.
It was so fun. Yeah, you have tons of photos, and we'll release them all on roardads.com.
Yep.
Somewhere like a blog or something. I don't know exactly where it's going to be right now. Probably a blog.
Yeah.
Probably the best place to dump some photos. So check those out. It's so fun. It's so fun watching somebody with a different style capture the same thing that you were at.
Yeah. I really enjoyed watching you and seeing where like the perspectives you were getting, the things you were looking at, the way you were looking at them. I don't shoot often with other photographers except at shows, and I don't really get to interact because there's so much chaos going on. So it was cool to watch that.
All right, we'll talk about my favorite.
Yeah, let's see it. Sean killed.
Maybe killed something. This is my favorite photo.
Absolutely,
you've seen it.
Yeah, I wanted to get that the moment because that move happened in 2 or 3 matches. And I never caught it. And when I saw that you got it, I was so jealous.
It was a little bit. So here's what I was thinking about today, and what we were talking about just a minute ago with like street photography, and with like trying to find the composition, and then letting the action happen within that composition. So I was up on the balcony, behind like some off bar. I don't even know where I was, but it was right by the VIP stairs. And so what I was doing is I was just holding my camera up as high as I could to get above the heads. And then it's digital, so I could see on the back, so I could see exactly what I was composing. And so all I was hoping to do was to get these leading lines of the flags going down to the stage because it's creating this natural vignette. I mean, the lights are pumped onto the stage, so it's vignetted already. I knew that I wanted the stage to be kind of towards the bottom of the frame underneath. It just feels big.
Yeah, it feels huge.
It feels huge. So what I in street photography, how I like to do it is I like to find a cool place on a street.
Yep.
With a cool building, with some cool angles happening, with shadows crossing something. I'm looking for something that catches my eye, and then I'll set my camera in the right place, and then wait for somebody to walk in where I want them to walk.
Yep.
And then I'll snap the photo.
Dude, that's that patience. So there's like different schools of street photography, right? And there's certain artists that come at it from the I found a place. Let that happen. Let the image come to me. And it's incredible when you see those. There's a book called Contacts. I don't know if you've seen that. It's all these Magnum street photographers, and it's 2 pages of all their contact sheets, getting the one image. You'll see 60 frames to get that one, and you're so good at like being patient and waiting for that.
Well, I also shot about 1,000 frames.
No, but it's like it is. It's like it's setting the stage for it to happen.
Well, it's setting the stage, and then like trying with digital, it's super easy, right? If you're shooting film, like you're gonna have to crank them. But with digital, I call it an Uzi. So I'm shooting an Uzi. Like I'm able to fire off frames, every half second. And I'm still getting the exposure that I need. Yep. And
but I'm saying you set up.
You set up the stage.
I want this. I will let it come to me.
And that's exactly what I did. So I set the stage and I let this guy do his thing. But what really works for me in this photo is that I have mostly dominant verticals happening, and then with the ring, I have these angles, these diagonals that break up all the vertices, and then in the middle of that vignette of angles, you have another vertical. So it's my dominant vertical. And it's like, it just creates this stoic nature to something that is complete chaos.
Yeah.
Right? It takes one moment in a night that seems so serene, but the second after I took this photo, this dude got dropped.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
And if you could hear
this
that
guy
sound,
in particular,
like I can still hear it ringing in my
he
head.
was 300 pounds at least, man.
Yeah.
This guy was a big
man.
one.
And how great was the catwalk to sit squared with the ring as well.
Yeah.
So it lent itself to that.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah.
That vantage point.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
angle,
Absolutely.
Perspective.
It was perfect.
Man. Yeah. So this one was fun. I like it because it feels big. It feels huge.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the photos that when we walked in, I was like, oh man, I'm going to try and get something that feels huge. Yep. Like that's the thing that I want. Out of anything that I take tonight, like if there's something that I can get that feels huge, and I knew it was going to be a wide, what can I get?
And it's funny because you looked at it as wide, and I got up there and I was shooting from behind people so that I get the perspective of a voyeur again. Like I was like, I want people to look at my photo and see like what would it felt like to be there, and like you created a grandiose image. Yeah. It's just interesting to see those two like juxtaposed ideas.
So this is one of the other images that I think is my favorite of the night.
Absolutely.
These two guys. So when you were asking me earlier, like, what did I feel that night? This was the photo that I took when I was feeling what I felt. That was the lamest thing I've ever said in my entire life, just right there. Okay. So, and I wrote a blog about this earlier, but I'll explain it now because it's so cool seeing this photo here and knowing how I felt. These two guys were animals, man.
Yep.
So this dude on the left, I don't know if he was high, but he was something. And he was wearing like this red fleece. His hair was like stringy blonde, like hadn't been showered in a few days probably. Wireframe glasses. Like if you looked at this guy, like he's not impressive, right? He's not The Rock, or he's not, I don't know, Justin Bieber. I don't know who's impressive these days. He's just there, like losing his mind for this show, dude. He's screaming at these people, and he's fully engrossed. I felt so bad standing there taking photos because I was in front of him on the railing. I was like, I'm gonna get in this guy's way. Like, I want him to be able to experience this. I don't want to like be the a-hole photographer that's trying to capture something. And he loved it, dude. He was so into it. I was like, that is heartwarming to me in like this simple kind of way. It's like, oh, dude, you know what you like and you're doing it right now, purely.
Absolutely.
The guy next to him was angrier, but as tuned into what was happening in front of him. He was cussing at the dudes. He was calling them overrated or something. Like, he was screaming at these people, and you made the joke. You're like, dude, this guy works for UPS. Chill out. Like, he's not like real. It's like the guy has a family. And he's just like fully immersed in what's happening in front of him. And I remember sitting like taking these photos prior to this one in front of these guys, just hearing them losing their minds for this. And I was like, oh, that's what pureness is. That's what pure joy is. I feel it when I get on the ice, like a clean sheet of ice. I know what that feeling is. But to see somebody else like really experiencing that in their atmosphere, it just took me back. It took me back. So I snuck behind him, and we were talking about how I want to use foreground to create this vortex. Like, it distorts just enough. And so the dude in the red was that foreground by way of my angle, because they were sitting on the same row. But by way of my angle, the dude in the white beanie was maybe a foot in front of him. So he's less distorted. And then the leading lines of the ropes, I guess they're not leading lines, but there was just this layering effect that was happening. So you had this dude right here in the left frame, first layer, dude in the white beanie, next layer. Third layer was the action in the ring of the guys kicking this dude in the ass, and then the ref like staring at him. Fourth layer is all the people on the balcony behind. So there's this layering effect that's happening. I feel immersed into this photo. And I think that's one of the bigger things that I was trying to do that night was like, okay, I want something that feels big. And then I want to figure out how to use the focal length of this camera in a way that makes me feel immersed into the action.
For real? Oh.
If it doesn't, then whatever. Okay, so immersed. Yeah, those are those photos. Let's just go question. So the last part of this show is we're supposed to bring a question to each other about fatherhood. Mm-hmm. And I told you that we were going to do this before you came here tonight 5 minutes ago.
I get the Excel spreadsheet on the
so
the show notes.
Cheers. So just a question about life, a question about fatherhood, whatever's on your mind.
Yep.
Mine is, and I don't like make resolutions. I was just saying this. I don't really make resolutions. I'm not that guy, but we're coming into a new year. I've been thinking a lot about some stuff on my end. What is one lesson, one word, one thing that you are experiencing or thinking about right now within fatherhood, being a father?
I think that the last few years I've been wrestling with this, but it's finally come to a head where I want to do something. I want to make a change. Is challenging myself and not being scared to push into those challenges, whether it be fitness. There's a lot of riding goals I've been putting off for a long time, but I mean, fatherhood has been the main focus, and I was okay with that. I'm still more than okay with that, but this is the first year where I feel I have space and time and energy to put into that. So, challenging myself to create art, to create space for myself to accomplish goals and fail at goals, but I need to push myself to challenge. Whether it be I fail or not, I need to get there. I need to give myself the space to fail. For the last few years, I've just haven't pushed myself to that space. I've been like, well, I got Lachlan needs me, my wife needs me, etc. And I'm thankful that I had that. But this is the first time where I felt like, okay, like there's space for me to explore that. Let's do it.
What do you mean it's the first time now that you can explore that?
I think I was focused. I was fully focused on supporting my wife and my child. And I'm so thankful that I was. Also, work has been if your home building industry has been popping for a long time. It's the first year we've had a slowdown. Yeah. In 5 years, probably. So like 2018 and 2023 was just 2024 was just upwards trajectory, infinite upward trajectory. And this is the first time where I felt a let off at work And then my kid's in a great position where like the demand isn't so high. Like you're back into it, right? Like Bray's almost 4.
Mm-hmm.
You felt that like demand pull back a little bit of all your time.
And
But
then we
now
had
you have
another baby.
Now you have a new baby, right? But like I'm at that position where like Lachlan is demanding my time in a way where he wants to be with me.
Yeah.
Not like he needs me every
Yep.
second.
Yep.
So I'm finally feeling that breathing room. And it's giving me that space to be like, I can challenge myself and I want to do that. I want to put myself in positions where I can fail or succeed. So with that being home projects, fatherhood, fitness, art, that's my goal this year.
I feel like there's a parallel there to your experience of communities. Is there? Am I making stuff up?
Of like subcultures and communities?
Subcultures. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. There is, man, like within music space, right? Like there's project. You put in a project, you put in the work, you give it to the world and it can fail.
Yeah.
But you have to step into that and say like maybe people don't like this music, maybe they're not. So yeah, I think that there's definitely parallelism there.
Do you have any challenges that you're thinking about specifically that you're excited for?
Yeah, I think fitness is one. Getting stronger, getting back to fitness, getting back into that routine. I just put it on the back burner for a long time. Yeah. I've had a couple riding goals for the last few years that I've wanted to accomplish, and I have not done them.
Riding as in like
yes,
bicycle, not writing.
Mountain biking.
Okay.
That I want to accomplish. I want to feel what it feels like to be in that moment, and I haven't given myself the energy. I haven't put the energy in to even like get to that space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a couple of big riding goals, big rides that I want to accomplish. Kenosha to Breck is like the thing I've been wanting to do every summer, and I just don't put the work in.
Cool.
Because it's something you can't just walk into. So that, and then yeah, I want to create. I'm creating a zine right now. I'm doing this thing with Sean, Dad's Night Out, and I want to I want to accomplish things this year, and not just live in the moment.
How do you see that impacting how you show up as a dad?
I think that I'm a better dad when I'm accomplishing things that give me energy. So it's funny, like that simultaneous energy suck also needs to be replenished. And dude, like last summer we went through a thing where Lachlan didn't sleep for 4 months straight. We got like maybe one night a month where we slept through the night. And that drained everything that I had. It drained everything I had as a husband, as a dad, my wife, etc. Sean, you've been through it, fighting Bray, like these things that, like where the energy is sucked out of you and you don't have energy to put back in. I realized at the end of this year, I was like, I need to put the energy back in somehow. I need to be fulfilled. I need to be pursuing things that give me energy so I can be a better dad. I can show Lachlan like, hey, like these are things that you can pursue that give you life. And I want my kid to, like, I spent so much time with him this year and it was incredible, but I also I want him to see me pursuing my goals and accomplishing them, and as a family, embracing that.
Yeah.
So,
man, I've watched Locke just like fall in love with you over and over again. So just to commend your ability to show up for him and be there with him, and be there in the challenges. Like you have challenged yourself in many ways. And so I just want to encourage you in that, as well as like, thinking about you guys going out and biking. Like you guys you go to the jumps all the time or the track all the time. And like, I can tell he loves his dad, dude.
thank you.
So you're doing a really good job.
And I
You're
love
doing a
that
really
with
good job.
him. I put everything into him this last year. Where like
Yeah.
whatever he wanted, I was like, let's do that together. And like those memories are forever. Like I'll never get that time back, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful I made those decisions to encourage him, to grow with him, to spend that time. And I'll never have that time back, and it's the best time I've ever spent. But this year, I want to say like just take a little bit back, and then also show him what the world can be if you push into it.
And we got Bray a camera because you guys got Locke a camera, one of the little toy cameras, and like him watching you do a project like Movement, the zine you're working on, is going to somehow impact him. You know, it might make him want to take more photos, or it might just show him that dad is pursuing something that he cares about. And so, like you're saying, the energy that you gain from doing stuff that you love is going to be imparted to your kid just by happenstance. Just because you're doing it, it's going to make you show up better as a dad, and want to do more things with your kid.
It's crazy, that balance, though, dude. It's so hard to find that in those first few years. And so many dads told me, like, you got to take the time to do it.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to pull that. Get the guilt as a dad, the energy draw that you have from your family is tough. But it's like, I'm so glad that I put everything into it, because now I'm reaping those rewards. So now it's time to finally get a little bit back.
Yeah, I dig that.
So that I can give back to my family again. It's just a wild, like, cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, finding that balance, that's the key.
Sean, what is your... So it's funny, we kind of half-baked this whole idea, right? The Dad's Line Out thing came together quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
And, like... But it's awesome. Like, I think I thrive in that. I love seeing you experience that. It's like, what are you hoping to, like... what are you hoping to experience and then gain from the next 12 months of this? Because we're setting... I think we're both setting concrete, like, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
So,
presence, just being present, and I think that's all encompassing in my life. I've thought a lot about this over I had like 2 weeks off. I had a lot of time to think, and I did. The biggest thing for me, and I don't want this to be a long answer. It's probably going to be a long answer. I'm really, really, really good at thinking in the past or in the future. That's where I live. I think it's a coping mechanism from just the way that I grew up with, my mom. She's a paranoid schizophrenic. And then with my dad, I'm an only child, and they got divorced when I was 2, and I was in a lot of weird situations. And so I think a lot of the coping that I did was living other places in time. And so that skill that I developed, is it called a skill? It's a skill. Myers-Briggs tells me it's a skill, or whatever that Strengths Finder tells me it's a skill. It's called futuristic, whatever.
I'm going to put that right here.
That's right. I think I developed such a strong ability to be, in the demons of the past or the sirens of the future. And I've never had the ability to stay present. And I see that showing up with Braden and with my family in general. And it sucks, and it's heartbreaking to not be able to see what's right in front of me. I'm going to miss it. I'm never getting these moments back, ever.
No.
And I don't want to miss it. And so I think literally just sitting there watching these two dudes scream at people they don't know, and just having like this freedom to take stupid photos, not stupid, fun photos, great photos, but just like be stupid taking photos is what I mean.
Yep.
Without any, obligation. I was present and experiencing that serenity, I guess, was incredible. And so hopefully that continues to happen. And what I like about you is that you do find things that not a lot of people are going to go to, or not a lot of people are going to find themselves wanting. And I think that's awesome. And I've been a hopeless romantic in that, where it's like, oh yeah, that'd be cool to like really want to do, but you really do it. And so, letting the judgment pass and being able to just show up, whatever, I'm not wrestling, let's go, have a beer and have some fun, and then like come out of the show and be like, oh my God, dude, I've never had so much fun. And be present in that moment. And man, I've just been like filled to the brim. And what that does for me is allow me. So I have I don't get poured into as much, but I try to pour out. And, you know, as a dad, like pouring out when you're not poured into is just like, oh man, burning the fuse, you know, to the very bottom.
We talked about that in Roar from the beginning, right? We as dads, we need something. We need an outlet. And it's hard to make that conscious decision to have the outlet. We always feel guilty as dads for not showing it for our wives, not showing it for our kids. And I've always wanted that for you. I'm like, yo, you got to experience things, because that experience, that open freedom allows you to reciprocate it back in.
Totally.
Which is, it's such a hard decision to make.
Yeah. And being cognizant of that ability is something that has been overly challenging for me. Man, it is like calculus, dude. So yeah, I just learning how to be present. I hope that's what comes through these projects, and I think it will. I mean, it already has.
Absolutely.
And I've seen the fruit. You know, I've already seen the fruit. I've already seen the ability. Like we got home from that night, and it was the first time in the longest time that like I wanted to check the photos that I shot.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And start editing them. And I was texting you. It's like, dude, what do you think about this? And you're like, homie, I'm going to sleep. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Good night. And then I texted you like 6 more times, like all the photos, like screenshots of
I'd
photos.
been sick, just that's why I was like, I could barely hold on.
We were both sick. We both had something. I had COVID.
Someone else had something. With creative fever.
Yeah, you're right. That's what we'll call it. And it was messy. And then Bray literally like at 1 a.m. started puking and didn't stop until 11:30, 12 the next day. And so we didn't sleep at all that night. But boy, when I got out of bed, because we didn't get up, we got out of bed and came up here and put him on the couch. And it was probably like 7 in the morning. I started editing photos again. I was like, this is so exciting. And this has not happened to me in the longest time. And so, yeah, I mean, a rejuvenation of creative energy and an explosion of like presence. And so I hope that's what comes out of this project. But if nothing else, man, I think presence for my son and presence for my family, presence for my daughter, those are the things that I want more than anything, because, God, dude, I'm going to miss it. I will miss it. And I know I will. And I can't handle the thought of that.
Dude, I'm wrestling with that so much, because Lachlan's changing every day. And you just like realize every moment that clicks by is like, you're not going to get that one back. Because we're probably going to be single kids, like or solo parents. Like that's it. We're okay with that. But also you realize how fleeting that is. You're getting a second bite. You might get a third bite. Who knows? But like, we've kind of made that decision. So I know like when he does this for the first time, that's the only first time I'm going to get. When I get that moment where he's like, let's do this together, it's like, if I don't take it, I might not get that chance again. Yeah. Which is crazy. Yeah. So I'm glad you're feeling that, because I've always hoped that for you. That I would just be destroyed by presence. Appreciate that, Larry. Yeah, man. Hurts me. I've seen you wrestle with all these things that you're talking about, and I've always been like, I wanted to push you to like, hey, there's so much to experience, and it'll benefit. I like that. Thanks for thinking about me. Yeah. Like Wolfpack at Red Rocks tomorrow. It goes on sale at 10 a.m. Give me the money and I'll do it. We have 2 kids, Larry. Yeah, I know. I do. Trust me, I don't know. Cool, man. Well, this is fun. This is, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what's happening in the future with this. For reference sake, we're going to do Dad's Night Out 1 night a month. We're picking an activity. We're going to document it, put together a photo book. That is the goal we're putting on video right now. Wow. Yeah. That is the goal. So, and you know, we'll release everything as it goes on roardads.com. Yes. We'll make it like official and cool instead of like some statement on a video. 4 people are going to watch. Yeah, like, whatever. It's going to be a sick book anyways. Shouts out to Braden, who decorated the set tonight. Absolutely. Shouts out to JB, Joel Burns, thank you, for the Joel. Whiskey. Shout out to dudes in spandex. I was just about to say the same thing, baby. And women in spandex. There was also Lola.
Lola.
No, what was her name?
I don't know. I don't know any of their names.
Yeah,
man.
Lola. Like it was like supposed to be like what's the Spanish?
She looked like Dora the Explorer.
Yeah, so her name was Lola's Big Adventures. So
Oh, okay, it all makes sense
yeah,
now.
so yeah, it was a Dora play. That's the word I was looking
Dude,
for.
I just remember Terminator Prince. Like that's the only guy I really remember. I was like, this dude sold out, man. He is a real. I think watching him come out, that was when it became like crystal clear that I was in something that I wasn't supposed to be in. When he walked out with that, I was like, oh, they're committed.
They're committed.
I am not committed to this. Like this is my one and done. Maybe like one and like maybe later. But yeah, man, these people they're wild and I commend them.
Incredible, dude. Like, yeah.
Sick. All right. Well, until next time. Shall we shake hands?
Cut.
Okay.
Run it up.